podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Well, there were three, weren't there? Ronaldo, and Ronaldo.
I thought you were going to say Sacco, e own goal.
No. Yeah, France will always go through. Honest. Not so bleu in France anymore, are they? You know, the world was all doom and gloom, and Patrice Evra was to blame for everything as normal, and now everyone's a hero and they're off to Brazil. So, amazing performance from France. Ukraine pretty pathetic by the end when they either needed to hold on for extra time or get a goal. They were reduced to just booting it long. So, yeah, pretty poor. Less said about England's two performances this week, the better. Both dire, but of course they counted for nothing. But, you know, I think we know exactly where England rank in the scheme of things. Not as good as the fifth place South American side, and definitely not as good as Germany.
I mean, I've got a bone to pick with that point. We'll come back to England if you want.
Yes, OK, let's come back to England. And since you so rudely interrupted, typical French, I'd say. Well, you're French this week, right? Yeah, I know you like to switch between the cheese-eating surrender monkeys and, long ball England.
Well, listen, I'm also pretty German, so, you know, I've got the full European contingent going.
Yeah, you're not sitting on the fence, you're
straddling the English Channel and the Maginot Line or something. I thought the thing about England is I think the idea that this is somehow reflective of our quality is ridiculous because it's completely injury-racked. He went back to playing a very kind of staid version of football. He was trying out a bunch of utility players. He took Rooney off with 20 minutes left against Germany. You know, this was a friendly in every possible way, and I think if you look at how relatively well England played in the last two games in qualifying, I think that's probably a bit more of a barometer of where they're at compared to this kind of slightly makeshift couple of teams.
They managed to beat a couple of sides that didn't qualify for the World Cup, and they managed to lose to a couple of sides that did qualify for the World Cup. So there you go. There's your barometer.
Except it's not your barometer because it's not the same team. Barring a pretty deep roster of injuries, the kind that normally get played through during a World Cup rather than cried off for a friendly, that is not going to be what England line up like in the World Cup. That's the only thing. I just don't quite understand why it's assumed that that's the real England, in inverted commas.
Well, we won't blame the real Germany in that case. So, look, here's the reason why it matters for Roy Hodgson. He has one friendly left before the end of the season, and then a couple of warm-up games after the squad is picked in the United States, opponents to be determined. That's it. For Roy, in that case, he's supposed to know his team effectively now, and he knows that outside the first 11, they don't perform for him. So that's a bit of a problem, I'd say, you know, and it kind of goes to the lack of strength of depth in the England squad, and by the end of the season, there will most certainly be injuries and burnout. There's quite a few older players in there too, so that's his problem. And, you know, when it came down to it, that changed side was technically inferior, massively technically inferior to two opponents this week. So there you go. Technically not inferior to almost anyone was Ronaldo, who is so good his teammates were celebrating when he still had 40 yards to go before he struck home his second of three against Sweden. Have to say, of all the drama in the World Cup playoffs, the second half of Sweden versus Portugal has got to have been the best of it.
Zlatan versus Ronaldo. Final score in the tie was like Ronaldo 4, Zlatan 2. At one point, Ronaldo was beating Zlatan on away goals. There were a bunch of other players playing, but only those two got on the score sheet. And the scoreline thing looked absolutely beautiful. Just all the goals in the second half, Zlatan and Ronaldo just kind of trying to one-up each other. But ultimately, I think one of the reasons that Ronaldo, I mean, apart from the fact that Ronaldo is just an absolutely magnificent player, he definitely has a better supporting cast than Zlatan, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. I mean, Portugal players are all very comfortable on the ball. They have a very good system. They retain the ball. They're patient. Frankly, they should have done better in qualifying, really, than they did. And I think that was a point made by actually Zlatan last week. You know, they probably underperformed in qualifying. Not for the first time recently, Portugal. But they're going to Brazil. I don't think anyone will place them in the top rank of favourites by any means, but they have Ronaldo there and he can cause damage. He definitely can, and he's very much settled into the system he plays now for Portugal. I mean, in his early days, they moved him around in different positions. He comes in off the left, he plays the same position he plays for Real Madrid, and he scores bags and bags of goals, and there's some good players in there. There's some frustrate as well. Nani particularly poor across both legs, I thought, and, of the United contingent in there. But, I think after all those games, it's going to be a good World Cup. I think there's a very good mix of sides in there. The one bone I have to pick really is with the playoff system. I mean, half a place to Australasia, New Zealand absolutely spanked by Mexico, although they did put in a creditable fight in the second leg, didn't they? 3-2 in Auckland after being spanked 5-0 in Mexico City. And Uruguay, Jordan, which completes on Wednesday night, but Uruguay won the first leg 5-0, so they're definitely through, and that takes a place away from Asia there. So I wonder whether they ought not to get rid of the playoff system altogether, which is an area that Sepp Blatter, in all his wisdom, has been talking about.
I mean, I have to say, you might be right, but it has been easily the most exciting international football since the European Championships, this most recent international break. I mean, that Sweden against Portugal game, I would kind of say let's not scrap the playoff system just so that still exists.
No, well, that's fine. I think in Europe it's kind of necessary. It's the intercontinental playoffs that don't seem to make a lot of sense for me.
Definitely agree with you there. That half a place thing is very kind of odd, and it does really inhibit development, doesn't it? In continents where you've got half a place to qualify for the World Cup, you're just so much less likely to get any representation, and you can't build anything and all that kind of stuff. So back to Ronaldo for a second. There's a few things gone on. One, he just seems to have scored 150 hat-tricks or something. Maybe his 25th hat-trick since he just scores tons and tons of hat-tricks all the time. It's ridiculous. He scored more goals so far this season than any Premier League team. I mean, not all the Premier League teams put together quite. 31 goals this season. Man City on 28. That's ridiculous. And also, you mentioned Portugal not having done very well in qualification, but they've now qualified for more tournaments during Cristiano Ronaldo's career than they had done for the entirety of the time before his international career began. The man is just absolutely ridiculous. And all three of those goals, not a single one of them was an easy chance, was it?
Oh no, certainly, and he finished them all absolutely beautifully as well, which is what he does. That's why his teammates were fist pumping the air as he was bearing down on goal. So how high quality he is. And of course, the voting for the Ballon d'Or was put back to the end of the month, supposed to finish on the 15th, and now will finish at the end of the month. And I wonder whether that performance will increase the turnout for Ronaldo. Apparently, a particularly poor turnout of voting from international captains, selected media and international coaches for this one, so that's why they've extended the deadline. But conspiracy theorists were out in full, weren't they, saying, oh, look, it's favouring Ronaldo, what with Messi on the sidelines for 2 months, and perhaps his star has waned a little bit this season, only a smidgen, And another interesting point on that one, 5 on the shortlist apparently rather than 3.
So that's going to be Zlatan, Messi, Ronaldo,
Ribéry
and Anderson.
And one other. Anderson, yeah. Anderson's definitely in there, yeah. Fulham-bound Anderson.
It's Januzaj, isn't it? That's the 5th person on the list. That would make sense. I tell you what we all have to fervently wish for and visualise this not happening whatsoever unless both teams get to the final, and then even then that would be just hideous. Please, 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 please don't let Portugal and Argentina be in the same group, because that is going to be absolutely unbearable. Can you imagine the brouhaha?
Well, yes. But, I mean, of course, their international records are very different, aren't they? So Messi has something like 37 and 83. I only happen to know this because I was looking the stats up yesterday. And Ronaldo's strike rate is somewhat better, but neither are scoring at more than a goal a game, which is what they do at club level. Messi's the interesting one because he really needs this, doesn't he? He needs to have a good tournament with Argentina. And Argentina do have a good side. They finished top of CONMEBOL qualifying this time round. Only a couple of defeats in 16 games, a ridiculously long qualifying campaign down in South America. But they've got loads and loads of firepower. I mean, there's Messi and Higuain and Lavezzi and Lamela, the Tottenham player. So they've got bags and bags of goals in them. At the back, not quite the same. I mean, obviously there's Garay, who was linked with United for some time. Can they go all the way? I'm not sure about that, but I think they'd be very disappointed if they don't make it to at least the quarterfinals this time round.
I noticed you didn't mention Tevez, and Aguero's Argentinian, isn't he?
Aguero, yes. Of course. Yeah, Tevez hasn't been in the squad recently, but Aguero will definitely make it, and, he's their leading scorer of the number nines, I suppose. He's kind of a 9.5, really, isn't he? I would think he would play alongside Messi in some way, and they're going to be dangerous for sure because of all that firepower. But have kind of underperformed, haven't they, since 1990?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. They're just going to want to win it so bad, aren't they, in Brazil and all that. I'm so excited about the World Cup now after that. International football, it happens every time. All my love for international football is slowly drained away over the course of the qualifying campaign, and then it's sort of rushes back to the surface as the major tournaments arrive, because there's just not anything quite like international tournament football. And we'll definitely do World Cup rankcasts, won't we, Ed?
Yes, I'm sure we will. Yeah, I mean, the tournament football's always pretty exciting, and the excitement will build up in England between now and the tournament. I'm sure there'll be some people that predict England will win the tournament.
no one in their right mind. I know I was sort of vaguely defending them, but they are not.
I'm sure there's some adults out there who still believe in Santa. So,
yeah, clearly. Yeah. Santa Hodgson.
Any of you 12-year-olds listening, sorry. Just, hey, doesn't exist. But one of the interesting things about England is they desperately need a good draw, and not being seeded means they could well get a very difficult draw. I mean, they're definitely going to get one of the seeds, all of which are good sides, except for Switzerland. Random quirk of the FIFA ranking system there. So Brazil, Spain, Germany, Argentina, Colombia. Very good Colombia side this time round, of course, led by Falcao. Belgium, we know all about. Switzerland, bit odd, and Uruguay. Any of those games would be tough ones. You'd certainly want to avoid Brazil, Spain and Germany, wouldn't you? And then England are going to get one of the pot 3 teams, and there's some nasty ones in there. France in there, Greece, Croatia, Portugal, Chile, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Cameroon, and then from the pot 4 you'd probably want to avoid Mexico and Australia, wouldn't you? I
mean, I think if you're trying to avoid Australia at this point, then you really are in trouble.
They qualified very well in Asia, actually, Australia. This is a decent Australia side. The Mexico side is a lot better than their qualifying campaign, which was abysmal. Very, very fortunate that the international playoff system is in place, so they get to play New Zealand rather than, say, a second-ranked European side or something like that. They're very, very fortunate there. But anyway, the point being that England could well get a very tough draw here, and I think England do need a decent draw in order to get through, and my prediction is they'll lose to the first decent team they play.
Yeah, maybe they might beat one by accident. You never know. I'm not really looking forward to the World Cup for England. It's just more the whole general magic of it. And I have to say, I'm completely suckered in by Brazil in Brazil. I would just love to see that happen. It's interesting because they've not been great, but they've really seemed to be starting to find their feet now, don't they? The Confederations Cup seemed to really be a very kind of bonding experience and a very solidifying experience for them. So I know it's only against Honduras, but I don't know if you saw the ridiculous, cleverly and Welbeck-esque goal they scored.
Well, they can only dream of being that good, can't they? Look, they've got some absolutely fantastic talent in there. Obviously, Neymar is stealing the headlines at Barcelona this season. The back of the goalkeeper is a challenge for them. Julio Cesar not playing at the top level, and Victor they've played recently. He's playing in the local leagues there. But anyone with the talent of Alves, Silva, Marcelo, Dante, Maxwell is going to be tough to break down. I mean, there's some seriously good players there. Oscar has become their main man, sort of creatively. Paulino, who's doing so well at Tottenham Hotspur. Bernard, the guy at Shakhtar Donetsk in midfield. Got unbelievable talent up front. Robinho and Willian probably won't get anywhere near the side, but Neymar is going to lead the line, and I guess Hulk will probably make that squad too. Tons and tons of firepower. You'd think that if they're not very close to winning this tournament, it'd be a real surprise. And they really did spank Spain at the Confederations Cup. And I was listing names there, and I kind of forgot some. Leandro Damião, who's been linked with Tottenham over the years, hasn't he? Diego Costa, I guess he's not going to go now. He appears to be Spanish now. He's been choosing one or the other. Pato, will he make the squad or not? I'm not sure. His career's gone south pretty quickly. Kaká probably won't get anywhere near it. Lucas Moura, of course, a player who turned down United for Paris Saint-Germain's millions, doing very, very well at PSG, might not even make the squad.
So the big question for Brazil, of course, is whether they accommodate Anderson as a number 8 or a number 10. That's the debate that must be raging in Brazil, presumably.
Well, that's right. And can you tell which from which when you play Rafael and Fabio at the two fullback positions? Obviously.
I hope Rafael gets in the squad.
He won't. I mean, there's obviously Dani Alves. Maicon has been in the squad recently, which is a surprise given his age. And the Porto right back, whose name has slipped out of my mind momentarily, has also been in the squad a lot. So I don't think that he's going to be anywhere near it. I mean, he's still being blamed for that absolutely shocking Olympic Games performance, isn't he? Yeah, in the final. So he hasn't played for the full national team since just before those Olympic Games. So it'd be a real surprise.
Oh, it's mad, isn't it? A player of that quality can't get in his national team. I mean, he's so important to United, Rafael, isn't he?
Yeah, although, ask David Moyes, I'm not sure he's convinced, so...
Oh, God, don't stop! I don't want to have to hate David Moyes. I really don't want to have to. That would be mental, wouldn't it? Imagine not rating Rafael.
David Moyes is an ex-defender. I'd think he'd see the problems with his defensive side of his game before he saw the benefits of his attacking side of the game. Anyway, look, we're going off track. We were talking about the World Cup, and I think Brazil are probably the favourites. Given that although the core of the Spanish side is still there, that some of the key players are ageing. Xavi, 34. By the time the World Cup comes around, will he be the same Xavi we've seen at number 9? Bit of a problem, although they might have solved it if they'd convinced Diego Costa to become Spanish rather than Brazilian. Interesting and controversial one, that one, of course. Fernando Torres, they just can't rely on, or do they go with a false 9 system that has been used many, many times and play Fabregas up there? It's still a very, very good Spanish side, but in Brazil, favourites, I think, are the home side.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see how Germany do. I mean, we are veering into World Cup preview territory, but it's sort of, feels vaguely appropriate. I mean, obviously the Germany that turned up against England, as you said earlier, was not Germany's number 1 team by any stretch of the imagination. A bit of controversy in Germany because all the Bayern players got to go home and Bayern are playing Dortmund at the weekend. It was a bit slightly dodgy, that one, wasn't it?
Yeah, interesting. So, which United players will make it to the World Cup? I guess none from Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Chile, Ecuador or Uruguay.
Ecuador?
Oh, Ecuador, sorry. Antonio Valencia. Very much apologies, Antonio. Australia, none. Iran, none. Japan, Shinji will go, I presume. Whether he's a United player by then is another question.
You're really just trying to break my heart now, aren't you?
I'm yanking your chain. No South Koreans now that our Ji-sung has left us. Back at PSV, of
Is
course.
he still in the South Korean side? Because he definitely counts.
No, he retired.
Yeah, right, okay.
He retired. Anyway, we have none from the Ivory Coast or Nigeria or Cameroon, Ghana or Algeria, do we? No Americans, no Costa Ricans, no Hondurans. We have a Mexican.
He will be in the squad, presumably.
He will, although he's been in and out of the side. He will. I mean, he scored that many goals that 1 in 2 at international level. He will be. Although the chops changed a bit because they had such a poor qualifying campaign. Of course,
also,
one from Netherlands.
He might not be a United player as well. Not the one from the Netherlands, the one from Mexico.
The one from the Netherlands will definitely be a United
Yeah.
player. We have no Italians. We sort of have a Belgian, although it's very unlikely he'll go.
What?
Well, no, the big man will go. Sorry, I'd wiped Fellaini from my memory.
Okay, right. We've got one proper actual Belgian and a sort of Belgian. That's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. I don't believe we have any Swiss or Germans. No Russians either. No Bosnians. We have quite a few Englanders. So
Englanders. Good old Englanders.
Wayne Rooney will definitely go. I'm sure he'll take Phil Jones because of the flexibility. Probably take Chris Smalling, although Chris Smalling was somewhat to blame, I thought, for Germany's goal. Michael Carrick should go if he's fit. Danny Welbeck will go, I think, for his flexibility unless he's injured. And
also he's that guy, so
and
obviously
he's
you're
that
going to
guy
take him.
In the home of football. You've got to take the Welbs, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll have a good contingent there, I think. Spain, probably not. I wouldn't have thought De Gea will make the squad. He's nowhere near it really at the moment.
He should be. I'll tell you,
he should be. Although Casillas can't get a game for club for love nor money, and he's still number 1 for Spain, and Valdez and Pepe Reina will be the other ones. France, Poddy Paddy will definitely go. I'd think,
yes!
just in time to cause the strike, or he'll probably get get caught with a couple of hookers on the Ipanema beach or something, but...
No, not Patrice. Only to, construct an elaborate prank for one of his teammates.
Sure. Portugal, Nani will go, of course. No Greeks, no Croatians. So, it's England plus a few others from United will go. There maybe 10 or 12 players in the World Cup from United.
And, of course, what international mega superstars we buy in January.
That's right, yes. Obviously, you count Messi and Neymar and...
Ronaldo.
And Ronaldo's coming home, yeah, no problem. Yeah, definitely.
Very good. I can't wait anyway. It's going to be magnificent. It's interesting, the United player situation in this World Cup. Rooney will not be going expected to make a dent on the success or otherwise of the team in the tournament. It's not like the last World Cup he went to, he was one of the real big stars, and you don't really expect that this time, do you?
No, not at all, which was an interesting debate I was having on Twitter with a few people around the different paths that Rooney and Ronaldo's careers have taken. Rooney's not that much older than Ronaldo, and there was a time when they were in the same cadre of players, weren't they? And Ronaldo has focused, just check his physique out and his technique and his professionalism, what people make fun of his narcissism, vanity. It's all of that has made his career, and Rooney's very much the opposite, just hasn't been focused enough. He's a guy who made good and didn't want to make any better than good.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we mentioned last week, somebody put a comment on the United Run show page, actually, about us saying that we've seen the best of Rooney and how can you be sure he's 28 and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, just look at him. Just look at the way he plays the game now. And there is a little bit of joie de vivre coming back into his game. It's funny, you said last week he never beats a man, and he hardly ever does anymore, but he's done it a couple of times in the last few weeks. He tried to do it for England against Germany, and then he also did it for us against Sociedad in Europe earlier this season. So maybe he's rediscovering something, this whole thing about him being given a new lease of life under Moyes. We'll see anyway, right?
Yeah, he has rediscovered something. I just don't think that he's ever going to get back into that top level. There's too big a gap. He's just not that player anymore. Well, here's an analogy. The economies of Great Britain and the United States were growing at very similar rates. In fact, very similar sizes before the Second World War, and the cost to Britain of the Second World War stripped the country of its growth, and America took off since, and there's now a 60% difference in living standards, and it's kind of the same with Rooney and Ronaldo's career. There was a point of divergence where Ronaldo really focused and Rooney didn't, and I think they're miles apart now.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Trust an economist to using an economics analogy here, but I think it's right. It's sad for Rooney, but it's his own fault.
So, I was trying to decide whether to move on to Twitter questions or we do the preview of next week's games before we do that, and I suddenly thought, well, we can do both. We've had a Twitter question from @Salil Fatak that says, is a win this weekend a question of card when rather than card if?
Oh, bad.
I see what he did there, and I liked it.
Yeah.
You're a hard taskmaster when it comes to terrible puns, Ed. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. Cardiff have taken some big scalps at the... hold on, let me see if I know. Nope, at the place where they play in Wales. I have no idea what that stadium's called. I don't know, the Blue-Red Stadium, something like that.
It's called the Cardiff City Stadium.
Okay,
yeah. To be honest, I'm rather surprised that the chairman and all-round nutjob Vincent Tan hasn't changed it to the Tan Stadium or something ridiculous like that. Here's the man who took over, promptly changed the club's colours because red's luckier than blue. Bit difficult when you're called the Bluebirds, it's your nickname. But, the club's colours and badge changed, and a massive red dragon on there now. And he appointed his mate's son as the director of football, someone who clearly knows absolutely nothing about football. He bought players behind the manager's back. He sacked one manager, of course, and got in Malcolm Mackay, and he's managed to buy players that Mackay's never played because they're absolutely terrible. Took them on recommendations from agents, apparently, and apparently rings down to the changing room at halftime and makes suggestions about substitutions. Suggestions being you'll make these substitutions if you still want a job in the morning.
And I think Mackay's just holding on for the paycheck, isn't he? A huge argument over bonuses was what brought about the departure of, is it Moody? I think it's Alan Moody, maybe Andy Moody, left and has now joined another club that I can't think of off the top of my head. This is good, isn't it? Loads and loads of facts.
Alanis all the way.
Yeah.
You see, this is a preview of BBC's World Cup coverage,
Yeah,
surely.
absolutely. But the Vincent Tan situation, I mean, he sacked the assistant manager after, the director of football, after the Malky Mackay stood behind his players' requests for a bonus based on performance. Tan was very reluctant to pay that, but they were kind of entitled to it, and it was accepted that it would happen. We can joke about this situation, but actually it's a disgrace on the game of football, and it must be awful for Cardiff City fans to be going through this. I mean, we know what it's like, right, to have our club stolen out from underneath us, and it's interesting to see that Cardiff have not gone down the kind of Chelsea fan hero worship route, because Tan's brought relative success. Like, they haven't been in the Premier League before. It's been a very, very long time since they've been in the top flight, and they've been knocking on the door for such a long time, and they've finally got there, but they can't really properly enjoy it, can they? I mean, I'm sure they enjoyed beating Swansea, but...
I'm sure they did enjoy beating Swansea, and the results haven't been awful, right? They're only a couple of points off the relegation zone, but they're doing okay, right, for a newly promoted club. But it's all the stuff off the pitch is just embarrassing. The rebranding and the explanation behind that. Of course, a new Hull City owner wants to rebrand Hull as well. It appears to be infectious. And buying players, undermining the manager, fiddling around with the tactics, all of that kind of stuff. Don't take this as praise for the Glazers, but at least they keep the hell away from that kind of stuff. They only added, £680 million worth of debt repayments and associated costs so far, and by the time United's debt-free, more than £1 billion. We won't get onto the financials. Of course, Q1 financials came out, loads of positive uplift in revenues and all that kind of stuff. But at least the Glazers haven't gone there. They could have renamed United, I suppose. It would be the United Buccaneers or the Manchester Red Devils.
Well, there's no way we'd be either of those things. We would be Manchester Aon United. It would definitely be a commercial sponsorship, wouldn't it?
Almost certainly, yes. I'm surprised their naming rights haven't been explored. I'm sure they have behind the scenes. I mean, they said they wouldn't do that, but then again, they said lots of things they have subsequently gone and done, like selling off the training ground to a holding company and selling naming rights to the training ground and yada 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 yada. We could go on for ages about this one, but I suppose they haven't gone there. It's not been embarrassing. They're hands-off owners. As long as you don't find United being sponsored by a brand of Japanese tomato juice embarrassing, I suppose.
I do, actually, as it goes. Not got anything against Japanese tomato juice. If we were only sponsored by them, I'd quite like it. But it's them as the
65 other sponsors. Yeah,
that's the problem. In fact, if we could engineer a situation where our sole sponsor was Japanese tomato juice, I'd be all for that. Yeah, but no, I mean, I definitely feel for Cardiff fans. It's really interesting as well, because Swansea are obviously their big rivals, and it must be difficult for them to watch Swansea, who obviously had huge troubles of their own, bounce back from those troubles and be run in the way that you would hope a sane football club's run, right? With a kind of club culture, and the managerial transitions have been really smooth. They've made extremely sensible decisions in hiring, and it must just be awful for Cardiff fans to see that happening.
20% owned by the fans as well, and this is what happens when you're partially owned by the fans. Fans retain some kind of control, and there's some senses driven into these boardroom nutters.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, having said that, I feel for Cardiff fans. I hope we absolutely stuff them, right?
Oh God, absolutely annihilate them and mock them roundly from the terraces. Yeah, totally. They are a half-decent side, but only half-decent. The results have been mixed. Beat Swansea a couple of weeks ago, as you say. They lost to Cardiff. They got spanked at Chelsea, didn't they? Although I think most people felt they were a little unlucky with that one.
You said they beat Cardiff. They lost to Cardiff a second ago. You said they beat Swansea, lost to Cardiff.
Lost to Aston Villa.
Right. Yes. A very poor result, that, for them.
Losing to yourself. Terrible stuff.
Yeah. They beat City earlier this season as part of City's continued comedy away tour.
What did you say? Did you say they beat City this season?
Yeah, they definitely... I think they beat Manchester City this season. Fraser Campbell doing what all good ex-Reds do, much like Wesley Brown and John O'Shea did for Sunderland when Sunderland beat City. No?
Exactly, yes.
I thought I was going to get another way. I cannot wait for this game. I'm fascinated to see what goes on, because United have not been beaten since September the 28th, when we lost to West Bromwich Albion at home. So a pretty significant unbeaten run with some decent scalps in there, of course, notably Arsenal last time out. But I don't know about you. I'm definitely going to predict a United win and stuff, but I'm not super duper confident going into this one. I feel like, given how Cardiff have been been pretty good in their big games. They'll be super up for it, and I just don't know how good we are. I've got no idea how good we are, Ed.
Well, of course they'll be up for it. It's their cup final, isn't it? You know, this is the one they dreamed of when they got promoted to the Premier League. Sorry, that sounds awfully condescending, but yep, it was meant to be. Yeah. Plucky little Cardiff.
I managed to stay away from the accent all the way through this segment so far. I can't do it anymore. All right, boyo, but tidy. Sorry, everyone.
Very good. Better than your Dutch, I'd say.
Hey, my Dutch accent is, how you say, flawless.
We'll go through the entire 32 World Cup qualifiers and see if you can do an accent for all of them.
I'm definitely not doing that.
We'll just pick a kind of randoms. Can you do a New Zealand accent?
Yes, fish and chips.
So I've known a few New Zealanders. I'm called Ed. New Zealanders.
Yeah.
I'm called Ed.
Id. As in the id, the super ego and the ego.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Little odd, little disconcerting, but I've got used to it.
International breaks officially destroy the Rankcast. I think that's what we've learned. We've spiralled down to just randomly doing accents from around the world at this point.
Yeah, well, you got to pad out the content,
What do you think United's starting lineup's going to be? Because I've just got no idea who we're going to play midfield. And he's also going to have...
Have we got any players that are fit to play in midfield?
We definitely haven't got any players who are fit to play for Manchester United in midfield, no. But we've barely got them when all our midfielders can play.
Well, it might be Anderson's turn. Well, look, so Cleverley's had a couple of games. He's fit and played for England. Yeah, he kind of... Not terrible. Not terrible, not very good against Germany either. I could say he looks a bit lightweight, which is what he's looked for United this season. But you kind of figure he's going to play because the other options are Fellaini, who's not really starred for United yet, and he's got this ongoing issue with his wrist, so kind of easing him in. And Michael Carrick not fit. Anderson
not fit.
Well, Anderson's like warming up the reindeers because he's donning his red suit and getting ready for Christmas, isn't he?
There's a situation where we might have one midfielder who looks a bit lightweight and one midfielder who looks a bit heavyweight.
Yes, very good.
Just mean and untrue. He's not in that bad shape, Anderson. Certainly not compared to me. He's not. He's a veritable Adonis compared to me. So there we go. But I'm not a professional footballer, so there is that. Anderson and Cleverley seems like a possibility to me. But I mean, you've got to think he's going to play Fellaini, no?
Well, yes, I suppose so. If Fellaini's fit and this wrist problem is okay, if he's not being picked for games like this, when is he going to be picked? And Ryan Giggs comes into it, of course, because he's had a nice 2-week break alongside Anderson, of course. He's also had a nice 2 or 3 year break.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely difficult for Moyes. And I think that one of the things he might do is pick Jones. It's not impossible, is it?
I suppose so. I mean, Jones got a very specific role against Arsenal, which was to disrupt their midfield. Cardiff are not going to be passing rings around United, even this United midfield. No way, no chance. So maybe he'll pick Jones just because of the lightweight numbers that United have at the moment, but it is not going to be around playing that kind of game. I think United have got to go out there and take the game to Cardiff, quieten down that crowd who'll be passionate for their cup final and be professional about it, and I'm sure that's what United will do. I think United will go there and win.
I hope so. Selection dilemmas all over the park, really, except up front, where it's pretty clear what he's going to do, but it'll be interesting to see if Shinji plays. Japan beat Belgium, so Shinji is officially better than Marouane.
Good game, actually. I saw the second half of that, and Japan did very well against Holland as well.
Apparently Shinji played really well coming off the left against Belgium. So
doesn't play in the same way. He plays as a front three, so yeah, you might be on the left, but it's with no defensive responsibilities whatsoever. Just not the same.
At WJ Horan asks, given the form of Fellaini and Ando, has the Carrick injury created a problem that has no direct solution?
Yeah, good question, and answers itself, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we said this at the very beginning of the season, didn't we? Imagine if Michael Carrick gets a serious injury, and that was before we'd signed Fellaini, but still, it's not like signing Fellaini has exactly set the midfield on fire. And after this game, I mean, there's a lot of rotation to be done, because after this game comes Bayer Leverkusen, and then the week after, which we're not getting to today, but it will definitely be on Moyes' mind, a very big game against Tottenham. The European game in midweek, has become vitally important because of United's failure to take the chances they had against Sociedad.
Well, yes, it has, and we talked about that Sociedad game, didn't we, about how important that was to get the 3 points in order that the following games weren't quite so tight. But he's going to have to rotate his resources over the next week, sort of 3 games, and he'll have to rotate them. But with injuries and form and that kind of thing, it limits his options, doesn't it? So, it's going to be a difficult choice for him because he can't really go pick a scratch side in midweek because he'll want his full best possible 11 out against Tottenham, which is a really big game.
Yeah, absolutely. Bayer are keeping pace with the top 2 since we played them in the Bundesliga. They're on the same number of points as Dortmund, both 4 points behind apparently unstoppable Bayern Munich, who are pretty sure just going to saunter to that league. And I think it's a bit like, when Madrid and Barcelona were in their absolute pomp and just completely destroying La Liga, and then we faced Bilbao and everyone kind of assumed that Bilbao wouldn't be that good because there were so many points behind, but really just the dominance of Barcelona and Madrid made the rest of the league look worse than they are. I feel like Munich's incredible next level current status sort of makes the rest of the German league look worse than it actually is relative to other leagues, because Munich are walking away with it because they're that good rather than because the other teams aren't.
No, I mean, you're right, and Bayer have picked up some form. They didn't start the season super brilliantly, did they? I mean, last time out in the Champions League, beat Shakhtar, spanked them, didn't they? And a couple of wins since then as well. Well, maybe it was game 4 last, against Shakhtar, and then they drew away, didn't they? Cracking game against Hamburg in the last round where they beat them 5-3, although Hamburg have the worst defensive record in Bundesliga this season, so maybe that gives a clue there. But they're confident at the moment, Bayer. It's a different side than the one that turned up at Old Trafford, and I think this will be a real game for United this time out.
Yeah, absolutely, and you'd think that he's going to play a weaker side against Cardiff than he'll play against Bayer, because it's just so important. Everything rides on that, right? It's, if we lose the Cardiff game, that's not good at all, and it's very bad for the narrative, but it's ultimately not a disaster. But if we lose the Leverkusen game, it's a disaster for Moyes.
United have to get a point in Germany. I'd say it's really, really important. Otherwise, the spectre of not qualifying really does rear its head when one game ago we were talking about United effectively being qualified with a win. This is what happens when you're a little bit negative in Europe, and United were a little bit last time. Well, very, in fact, and Sociedad, Not to review that game again, but the more you think about it, the more it just didn't make sense, the tactics at the time. And this is why the pressure's on this game. This is why he's going to have to play a good side against Leverkusen away. And then that massive game against Tottenham comes. Who
do you think is going to be his starting 11 against Bayer Leverkusen in midweek then?
So I think he'll go for a little bit of experience in here. So starting 11, De Gea, Raphael, maybe, Evans and Vidic. And is Vidic fit? Vidic might not be fit. So I think he'll go from some experience, though. So maybe Ferdinand and obviously Evra. And then I guess on the defensive side, Valencia gets the nod. I guess Carrick won't be available, will he? Fellaini will have to play alongside Cleverly and maybe Giggs as well, just for that piece of experience. Although, of course, Kagawa has been a regular pick recently, and then Rooney and Van Persie's an obvious one who have to play every week now, don't they?
I mean, yeah, and he's played Valencia in Europe in every game so far, I think, unless I've got one mixed up. So I'd say that we're likely to see him. And I do wonder, I mean, the fact that you say we need at least a point, David Moyes has got a point away from home in Europe written all over him, hasn't he? So I wonder if he'll actually play a midfield of Jones, Cleverly and Fellaini, which could really work. That is a midfield that makes some sense to me, given that Carrick's out and given that we lack the perfect combination to make an effective 2 in midfield.
Yes, but then you're all very lopsided, so I think even David Moyes isn't going to play one winger. So if he plays 3 in there, he'll go very, very narrow, I suspect, and play Giggs as well in a sort of floating role. But we'll see. I'm not sure about that one. I'm not sure he'll play all 3 of them. He hasn't tended to do that. It's tended to be a pretty straight up 4-4-2 this season, hasn't it? So, I wonder whether he'll just go a little bit more conservative in wide areas with players he knows that he can trust in defensive situations, which is Giggs and Valencia would be my bet, but who knows? He's more predictable than Ferguson, that's for sure. But I would say he tends to err on the side of caution when there's a choice to be made between bold and cautious in a big game like this one.
So I've got a question for you. This could be a question from a listener, but it's not a question from me. Does the fact that Rooney has been so snotty about playing out of position and Moyes is completely determined to just play Rooney every game, is that combination of fact limiting his tactical options? Because there's just been a few games this season which have just cried out for Rooney on the left, and he hasn't even gone near that idea.
Well, clearly he's boxed himself in. He's boxed himself into two up front, unless Van Persie or Rooney are injured, or it's a lesser game where he feels like resting one of them. Yeah, in all the big games now, Rooney and Van Persie will play as a two, and that basically creates a 4-4-2 for United, because we don't really have the personnel to play in a more flexible way, and certainly not in a way that's any of the players are particularly used to. So, yeah, tactically, he's boxed himself in, but there you go. That was his choice, and Rooney is now undroppable and unplayable in any other position. Of course, when it comes around to contract negotiations, Rooney's still going to threaten to leave again.
Apparently wants a pay rise. That is a player who does not deserve a pay rise.
I'm not getting onto this one. No, I'm not getting onto it.
So, talking of things we're not getting onto, time for Twitter questions. @TypicalCity asks, is René Meulenstein aware just how good he is? I think you're having a bit of fun there at Typical City, aren't you?
Yes, I don't know. Maybe the question should be asked of Roberto Mancini.
Oh, sick burn. Football bants. @Typical City asks, is Phil Neville the next René Meulenstein?
Yes! The tactical genius that is Phil Neville and his herbal winning naturally grain bars, or whatever they are.
I'm very positive about Phil Neville at the moment because of the Class of 92 film. Talking of the Class of 92 film, I'm absolutely delighted to say that we've got a fantastic competition prize to give away on this week's show. We have got 3 pairs of tickets to give away to the Manchester premiere of the Class of 92 film. This is happening on Sunday the 1st of December in the evening, and it's in Manchester, and it's going to have a live link to the Q&A at the London premiere. So you'll see the film, and then you'll see the Q&A, and you can tweet questions and stuff to the Q&A. So it's kind of an awesome prize. To be honest, I really wish I was able to go, but I'm sadly not. But yeah, so phenomenally cool prize. Lucky enough to see the film, but it's review embargoed, so we'll have a good discussion about the film next week. But let's just say it's definitely a prize worth paying if you like Manchester United, which presumably you do, apart from @Typical City. So
he just loves the rank cast.
Yeah, exactly.
Loves it. He's got pictures of us on the wall. Like a little shrine. He's got a picture of you, me, Uwe Rosler, Sean Gota.
It's fair enough. I've got a little picture of him next to my picture of Cristiano Ronaldo. So I don't have a picture of Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah,
I'm not saying whether or not I've got a picture of Typical City.
Wiped down version.
The premiere's a super cool thing. We've got 3 pairs of tickets to give away. Normally on the podcast, when we do a prize, we do like a silly question, try and be funny at us, and we'll pick the funniest one. But I just don't want any kind of favouritism or anything coming into this particular competition, because it's I don't want favouritism.
We don't want Typical City winning.
Well, I don't want favouritism or reverse favouritism, where I don't pick any of the people that have been with us since the beginning, because it's too obvious. So we're going to do this totally random. So you absolutely need to use the hashtag Rantcast to be in with a chance of this, and just put the answer to the question and the hashtag, and you don't need to tweet at us or anything, just use that hashtag Rantcast, and answer the question in the famous photo of the Class of 92 with their arms on each other's shoulders that was recreated at the Gary Neville testimonial, where Eric Harrison is at the front of it and was replaced by Fergie in the testimonial picture. Who is the other player in that list who's not one of the Nevilles or Butt or Scholes or Beckham or Giggs?
Hey, here's a random piece of trivia. That other player, I have played with him.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
How did that happen?
It's a very long story. I'll tell you offline, but yeah.
Okay, cool.
He was much better than I was.
I've played football with someone that played football with David Beckham. That's the closest I get.
That's pretty good.
I think most people probably have, really, if you extrapolate that out.
I've touched Eric Cantona.
Oh, no. Okay, you win. That's just unbeatable. I said hello to Danny Welbeck, but he didn't pay much attention to me.
I tried to say hello to Bobby Charlton as he bumped into me outside of Old Trafford. Rude man.
Was he rude? Was he, Bobby?
He was.
Oh dear.
I've forgotten that one.
Yeah, so we're going to put all the answers into a randomizer thing on the internet. Going to spit out the 3 of the correct, all the correct answers, obviously. Put them into a randomizer, pick 3, and you guys will win tickets. The winners will be announced on next week's show, so you have to listen to it on Friday or Saturday and get in touch with us, and we'll make sure your names are on the guest list, and you just turn up on Sunday. So awesome stuff.
We'll tweet this this as well for those who don't quite catch us. Here's a clue for you. It's not John O'Shea.
No, it's not John O'Shea. All right, couple more Twitter questions and then we'll do predictions and then we'll call it a day. At Jonas Holmes 21 says, should Robin buy a PS Vita now or should he wait to see if it becomes a worthy companion of the PS4? Well, I would say that given the lineup of available games on PlayStation Plus, it's probably good value for Robin to get a PS Vita now. I've greatly enjoyed mine. There you go.
PS4 or Xbox One. Funnily enough, the donations weren't pouring in after last week's appeal. I'm very disappointed. Sponsors, PlayStation, Rankcast,
they're Champions League
brought to you by
right?
PlayStation. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying, just putting it out there.
Why hasn't that happened yet, Ed? I don't understand.
Don't know. But why have we not sold out to the corporate dollar? Do you think it's because we take the piss out of sponsors every single week?
That's what. We're just ruined. Won't take any money from gambling
Sponsors
advertisers.
with a sense of irony. Sponsors with a sense of irony. If you want us to take the mick out of you every single week without fail.
Sony have totally displayed that they're prepared to, have a bit of a sense of fun about this whole launch thing. Their little video about how you borrowed games on the PlayStation stuff. Yes, come on, Sony. We're a brilliant brand match for you now.
Totally.
At Tommy_CTS says, Finchy from The Office once threw a shoe over a pub. What's your most manly feat? I would argue that Finchy is so far away from a real man that none of his feats could be considered manly, but I don't know, I've climbed up some rocks and stuff. Once when me and Ed were little, we were on holiday with my mum and stepdad, and we climbed up this rock face, and it was quite scary and pretty dangerous, and a few times I thought that was going to be it for our little lives and there never would be a Rankcast. And when we got to the top, there were signs everywhere saying no climbing.
That's how tough we are.
Absolutely. I don't know, what were we, 8, 9?
And then we put a stake in the ground that said no dippers.
I didn't do that. Even at that age, I wouldn't have done that. All right, final Twitter question from the week. Talking of John O'Shea from @JackK Holt, who says, Wayne Rooney, Alex Ferguson, Malcolm Glazer, snog, marry, avoid. He says he's especially looking forward to your answer to that.
Very good. All right, I'd snog Fergie because, for all those trophies, he deserves a snog. I'd marry Glazer because he's going to die anytime soon, and I'd be a billionaire and own United. And I guess I'd avoid Rooney by default.
And also, that way you'd get to avoid Wayne Rooney, which surely has got to be preferable. I think
there's merits to that. I think that's good. Yeah,
I think that is quite good. But I think I would have to snog Rooney, get it just over with real quick, and avoid Malcolm Glazer because I couldn't even. It'd just be too unpleasant to be in his company. And I think I would marry Ferg. Kathy seems to have put up with him for all this time.
Very good.
It can't be that bad. Thank you. I'm really sorry to all the questions I didn't get to. Thank you very much to everyone who did write into the show. And I guess that's it, right?
That's it. And we'll do some predictions, I think.
All right. Cardiff 2-1 United, Bayer 1-1 draw.
Very good. I think United are going to run riot in Cardiff. Right, that's I tell you, I'm fully confident. I think a Marouane Fellaini hat-trick in a 3-0 win. Well, maybe not the first bit. 3-0 to United, and then 1-1 in Germany.
Do you think Januzaj is going to start either of these games?
I think there's a very good chance he'll start in Cardiff. I don't believe he'll start in Germany, no. And Tottenham game, yeah, maybe not. I don't know. He's left him out of the firing line a little bit recently, and he said he would do that as well. So I suspect that's what's happening, and we'll see a lot more of Januzaj after the new year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I think that probably does it for a Rankcast. It was a super bumper long edition last week, and this week's a bit more appropriate length, the International Week. Next week, we'll announce the winners of the Class of 92 competition, hopefully have an interview with one of the directors and do a bit of a review of that, and we'll look back on the games against Cardiff and Bayer and look forward to the Tottenham game and whoever else it is that we're playing. If you want to get hold of me and Ed in the meantime, you can get me at UTD Rantcast, you can get Ed at United Rant, you can get us both, or more accurately neither of us, at facebook.com/United Rant, and one place we tend to check is the comments on the show page at unitedrant.co.uk, where you can also find a plethora of excellent Manchester United related content. And if you want to contribute to the fund to pay for our bandwidth /new PS4s, that's United
/trip to Rio,
unitedrant.co.uk/donate.
Very good, and we'll see you next week. And one place you won't find us is hanging off the side of a cliff, and nor any scousers after Paul put that stake in the ground. But hey, see you next week. Thanks for joining.
All right, see you next week.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.